Welcome to this video in which I'm going to show you how I can take my 3D model here for my mood light and render it so that it looks rather cool like this, with my LED lights inside, with my frosted acrylic window on the front, all illuminated and rendered in 3D, so looking absolutely awesome. So here we are. Here's my 3D model in its current format for 3D printing. I can see there's the profile here, the 3D model for my mood light case with my ports at the back for the micro USB port. And what I need to do to be able to create this view here, first of all, is add on the front acrylic window. So that's the first thing I'm going to do right now in my design view. So first of all, let's just turn off bodies and let's turn on sketches so I can see my original sketch for this design. And what I'm going to do is do a new extrusion here, which is going to basically be all of these profiles, because of course my window at the front is going to be a complete letter A cutout. Let's see, let's just put that to a depth of 3mm, which is the thickness of my frosted acrylic window. Now if I turn that around here, I can see I cannot see what's extruded here. There was a warning down there saying that I couldn't see it because my bodies weren't turned on. So let's just turn on bodies here, and now hopefully I can see here that there is an extrusion happening. In fact, the extrusion that I'm doing is this one right here. You can see that I can project it out behind my letter A or project it through my letter A forwards. Now as I project that towards the front of the design, the way that this design has been built, it actually becomes a negative distance. So let's set that to be a negative 3mm. So it's coming out towards the front of my light. And you can see here that currently this acrylic window is at the back of the design. And of course I want to have it so that the acrylic window is on the front of my 3D print. So I need to change the start of where this extrusion begins. And I'm going to do an offset plane set above the back work plane of this letter A, and the distance I want to offset is going to be equal to the depth that I extruded this original letter A, which in my case was 27mm. Now if I dial in here 27, of course what's going to happen is it's going to extend it back away from the mood light, and I want to have it in front of. So if I therefore put that to a negative 27, then you can see that that is now appearing in front of the design. In fact, if I put it to 28, you can see there's actually now a 1mm gap between my acrylic window and my 3D print. Now at this point also, just notice that I've got here in operation, this is a new body. If I set that back to 27, it changes to join, because the computer assumes what I want to do here is add it onto my existing solid model, which of course I don't, because I want to have my acrylic window as a different material, a different body completely. So I'm going to have that as a new body, and there it is on front of my original 3D print. So let's confirm that, and I'm just going to rotate this around. And I can see that is my window. In fact, I can make that little window disappear and reappear, and I can make my original 3D print body disappear and appear again. So that's looking really good. Now at this point I'm going to go into the rendering mode, and I'm going to see how this looks as a render without the LED lights. So first thing, let's just go to render. I was going to save it at this point, but now I'm going to apply the render settings first, and then we'll save it. Okay, so in here, there's one thing I'm going to do with the setup. So scene settings here. The one thing I want to do here, if I scroll down, is change the aspect ratio to be a 1:1 square, a ratio 1:1 square like this. Don't change anything else in here. I'm going to leave everything else as exactly as it is. And then now what I can do is just right click. Well, in my case, I can right click. That's a different story. I've got in my preferences here, I have got my here we are, my pan, zoom and orbit shortcuts to Tinkercad, which means that I can basically right click and pan around, and I can of course wheel mouse in and out. So I'm going to use those techniques to kind of position my A where I want it to be. And I think that's kind of looking quite nice there. So let's now think about how we're going to render this in terms of materials. So I've got the appearance option up here. I'm going to click on this, and I can see I've got quite a few options open here at the moment. So let's just bring these back. Okay, so I'm going to take it back to there, scroll down here. Fantastic. So first of all, I'm going to do the main body here. And if I can just scroll up here as well, you can see at the top of this appearance menu, we can apply textures to either whole bodies or faces. In this case, I want to apply it to bodies because remember, I've got two bodies here. Body 1, in this case, is my 3D printed case for my mood light, and body 2 is the acrylic window. So I'm going to apply textures or materials to complete bodies. And for my 3D print, I'm going to go to, scroll down here, I'm going to go to, let's have a see, come on. Okay, I'm struggling here, folks. Here we are, plastic. Let's go to plastic, and I'm going to go with ABS. In this case, it's going to be white, but that's the material that our 3D printers work with. So let's drop that into body 1 here, and now you can see that that has got a white supposedly ABS material. Now, of course, we did ours with a grey filament, ABS filament, so I'm going to right click on this. I'm going to, here at the top, where I've got my details for my material rendering, I'm going to edit this. I'm going to change this to grey, and these values here are the RGB, red, green, blue values of this particular model. So if I set this to 255, which is maximum red, that to 0, and that to 0, this will give me a pure red. If I set this to 0 and then 255, I now get green. If I set the last one to 255 and the rest to 0, and I'll get blue. Now, if I put them all to 255, of course, I get a white. If I put them all to 0, then I get a black, and I want a grey, so I'm going to put them all to 128, which is generally viewed as being halfway between 0 and 1 and 256, or 0 and 255. Okay, so let's just confirm that, and there is my grey ABS plastic. Okay, now what about the acrylic window here? So I'm still working with applying textures to whole bodies and components, which is what I want. I'm going to remove close that plastics folder, and even though this is frosted acrylic, which is plastic, I'm going to go with a glass finish here. And as you can see, I've already got the glass textured window open, and I'm going to go with the medium frosted glass finish here. Let's just confirm there. Yeah, I believe that's the one I want. So I'm going to drop that medium onto the acrylic window here, and now I can see it's sort of semi-transparent and I can see through it. But if I right click on this, I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to call this frosted medium, and I'm going to call this, let's do it in purple. Okay, and now I'm going to move this slider all the way across into the purple area over here, and I'm then going to move the particular shade of purple over here. I don't think I'm going to make this quite deep. I mean, I could make it a little bit lighter here, but what I'll find is that when I add in my LED lights inside, it's going to, I think, look better if I have a darker shade of purple there. Now, if I spin this round into the light, I can see the kind of purple that I am getting. Let's have a see. Do I need to modify this at all? Either way, maybe a little bit more bluey purple is the way to go. I'm going to go with something like that, and I can change it later, but that looks great. So there we are. That is my design so far without the LED lights. I think what I'm going to do at this point, I'm going to close that. I'm going to go ahead and render it, and you can see some of my previous rendering examples down here. So I'm going to render this and see how it looks. So to render, I'm going to come to, before I render, I need to save it. Let's just do that first. File, save as, and I'm going to save this as, I don't know, Illuminated version 3. Okay, so now hopefully, yeah, look, there's the render option available, and bizarrely when you go to the drop down menu, there's only one option available, whereas the others at least have got a bit of a range there. So let's just go to the teapot render, and a few things to change on here. I want to go with a local render. If I go with cloud rendering, it gets rendered on on servers online, and I have credits to do this. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to go with a local render. I'm going to go with standard quality, and I'm going to keep the resolution here at this point just 733 by 733 pixels. So it's not a particularly high resolution image, but it's just to see what I get. Let's go to render. I should see something happening down here in the bottom left hand corner. Okay, I'm just going to have to be patient here a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to pause this so you're not having to sit through this in the video, and then we'll pick up again when something exciting is happening. Okay, so yeah, nothing seems to have happened here yet, and I've been looking at this for about a minute. Oh, there we are, look. it's actually just finished, and it's actually ready for me to preview. So that was quite strange because I didn't see anything appear down here. Normally you see like a little progress bar, and it didn't. So clearly, if it doesn't appear, just be patient, it will eventually appear. And there was something else I was going to show you in terms of Task Manager to monitor system usage, but I'll perhaps look at that in the next video. So let's have a see, what have we got? If I come down here, click on the little plus here, then what I get is my rendered image, which I have to say is looking pretty cool, and I can now download that to wherever I want to. I'm just going to pop it in there. I can give it a proper file name. And that's ready for me to add to documentation or print out or whatever I want to do with it, but that's looking great. Incidentally, you can also do some pretty cool things here. You can render this as a turnable image, which would take a lot more time for the rendering to be completed, because it means that you can actually view this in a suitable web browser extension as a 3D model and kind of spin it around live. You might have seen that with videos of cars on or products online, where you need to, like cameras, where you need to have like 3D renderings and be able to spin it around, which is quite cool. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. I'm going to stop this video now, and I'm going to do another video where I'm going to talk about how I introduce the little LED lights, and then how that looks, how I apply the rendering of the lights, and how that looks when it's finished. So hopefully I'll see you then.